Hey everyone, it's Janine Hovell-Cox with It's All Legal 2. And I decided to do an impromptu interview today with my friend Brian Middleton, who is the first African-American district attorney in Fort Bend County, Texas. Basically, that's right outside of the Houston area. So I always say that he is the first Black district attorney in the Houston, Texas area, period. And the Breonna Taylor decision, grand jury decision, came down, I believe it was on Wednesday. And I know there's been a lot of uproar and talk about that decision. So I decided to ask Brian Middleton to come onto the It's All Legal 2 platform to kind of just break down that decision and talk about the grand jury process as a whole. It's taken me a couple of days to get to this point of where I am actually able to talk about it, because I have been just so upset about it, as I'm sure a lot of people have been as well. So I thought that now that I don't know if things are going to calm down, so to speak, but as I'm concerned, I'm finally at a point where I want to try to talk about it, digest it, and put that information out there for our viewers so that they can hopefully better understand this process. So we're just waiting for Brian to come in right now. And I hope you all are having a blessed and happy Friday, all things considered, and that you guys have some, plans for the weekend. I know here in Texas, where I am, basically the state has reopened as far as COVID is concerned to at least 75% capacity for restaurants. I don't know about any live events, but, there's still, a lot that's not open right now. So I just hope you guys are staying safe out here and continue to stay safe and blessed. And I'm just waiting for you guys to come on in. And if you have any questions, please feel free to inbox me at It's All Legal 2. And hopefully I can try to answer some of those questions after our topic. And I think we were able to get some questions on as well while we're doing this interview. So again, just trying to get this information out there, because that's the whole purpose of my platform, is just to provide information about how the law and life always collide. And I know that we've had so many incidents happen over the past few months as far as police brutality, unarmed African Americans being gunned down and unlawfully detained. And I had an interview last week with Don Florio, an attorney, a criminal defense attorney in New York City, to talk about what your rights are if you are, in fact, detained or pulled over by police. So please be sure to go back and watch that video. I'm trying to get that up on my Facebook platform at It's All Legal 2. Right now it's on Instagram at It's All Legal 2. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. And like I said, I'm trying to get that interview uploaded on my platform as well, here on Facebook. So again, I am just waiting for Brian to come on in and join us. So I hope you guys are having a blessed day. And I want to know, and if you guys happen to check this out later and have questions also, please feel free to, again, inbox me, because I know that, I'm still trying to comprehend how the grand jury actually came to its decision about the indictments that were handed down only to one of the officers involved, and I believe that was Sergeant Hankinson. And basically he was charged with wanton endangerment, which basically means that there were no direct charges that were given as far as the actual death of Breonna Taylor. It was only as to the fact that the officers shot into apartment walls of neighbors that, in fact, endangered their lives, not the actual death of Breonna Taylor. So I think that's the part that everybody is still in disbelief about, to say the least. I know I am. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding on how that decision could have possibly played out differently, how the Attorney General for Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, could have possibly handled that decision or handled that, whole criminal case differently as well. So I'm just trying to process just like everybody else is, and I'm an attorney. So again, it helps me be able to talk about it on my platform. So I am just waiting for Brian to come in and join us, and hopefully he will be in soon. So in the meantime, do you guys have any questions for me? Hi, I don't know who's on there. Let's see who's on. Oh, hi, Malcolm. Thank you for supporting me. Hey, Melinda. Thank you for supporting me as well. I look forward to our interview on Sunday on my Instagram page at It's All Legal 2. And now we have Brian here, and I'm just going to add him into our discussion. Hey, Brian.
How are you?
I am well, my friend. How are you?
Can't complain.
I know.
Just working.
In paradise, right?
Oh, yeah. A lot to be thankful for.
Absolutely. All right. So I just want to just jump right into it. I think we both have done this, enough where we kind of know the drill, but I just want to know and try to understand what actually happened on Wednesday with the Breonna Taylor Grand Jury decision, as far as the officers that were involved in her shooting.
Yeah, from what I have discerned from media reports is that the grand jury, from what I can discern from the Attorney General's statements, I'm not clear as to what charges were presented to the grand jury, but I know that the charges that were indicted by the grand jury only resulted in one for wanton endangerment for one officer, and no one was indicted for the death of Breonna Taylor.
And I think that's what everybody is just for lack of a better word, pissed off about, or just in disbelief about. And can you just kind of break down what wanton endangerment is? I know we're in Texas, but Kentucky, but I think it's just endangerment to others through the damage of property.
I printed out the definition. So
perfect. So that's what I'm like. This is the breakdown. I just kind of want to quickly just break down what is going on and what transpired in all of this.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna get down. I just had the definition, but yeah, because that definition we don't have that in Texas.
No, I've never heard of that.
One second. I had it printed and now I can't find it. Let's see.
I like you said, we don't have that here in Texas, and I'm just like, I'm just like, really? This is what the officer was charged with?
Yeah, the definition: a person is guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree when, under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger of serious death or serious physical injury to another. So it's okay. Similar. It's similar to criminal negligent homicide in Texas. Similar, but
right.
different.
Okay.
But it's basically where you're doing something that's clearly dangerous and somebody dies. And so, that might be, considered, depraved act. I would think something that would fit that definition is, shooting into a crowd or shooting up in the air. You may not have a specific intent of killing a specific person, but you're doing something that's likely going to cause the death. And in this case, I guess that's why they found that easy to return an indictment, because he was shooting and shot into someone else's apartment. Now, it's something that, I've had to talk about a lot lately is, when we see these images, I mean, the death of Breonna Taylor was just awful. She lost her life. We can't get it back. She was doing nothing wrong in her own home, and she died. Yeah. And just died. And, and there's no way to justify it or to make that go away. So it's awful. Then the next question is that we know, since we know it's awful, is it lawful? And so then that's when it gets complicated. I think this situation is a lot different than other situations because reportedly Um, her boyfriend, husband shot first, which complicates it, the legal analysis of it.
Right.
So even if you say, okay, they were legally justified in returning fire, then the next question is, was it the right thing to do? And that's where the public comes in. It's legal, but was it right? And I think right now, most people in America would say, yeah, it was still wrong. I mean, y'all were in the wrong place, at the wrong time, shooting at the wrong people.
Well, let's not, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's not forget the fact that this was, this whole incident was based off of a no-knock warrant.
Right. And, in my sense, I think it's so terrible because it's not just this one isolated incident. It's all the other many incidents in the history of injustice in this country, which has made a lot of people hopeless. And so here we have yet another incident where expectations are not met. Justice in terms of an outcome was not served. I mean, one could say, okay, there was due process because at least the charges got presented.
Right.
So you can say technically there was a due process, but I think many people are starving for people to be held accountable for these type of acts. And so when something like this happens, then there's a lot of disappointment. But, I was shocked, but then I don't know all the details.
Right.
And you would have to be in that grand jury room to really know what was presented and how it was presented in order to determine whether or not it was a valid decision or at least a prudent decision by them. We're responding to media reports and not firsthand reports and ballistic reports and science and everything else. So it's real easy to second guess their decision, but
because we don't know what was actually presented to them.
Right. And so we have to, we have to be careful when we play in Monday morning quarterback. But the reality of it is, it remains is that she shouldn't have died. And
absolutely, it was another senseless killing, and there's no police accountability.
Right. And
so I just want to kind of back up. Can you just kind of take us through what is the grand jury? What is the grand jury? What is the grand jury's function? And who is the grand jury comprised of?
Well, in Texas, I can tell you what it's comprised of.
Right.
There's members from the community. They're selected randomly from your voter registration rolls and from your Texas DPS, Department of Public Safety, driving license records. And so that is the pool from which names are selected randomly. Notices go out. Like the last one when we did, I think 1,000 notices went out. Only got 60 people to show up because it's COVID. But but from that group of people, then it's just like voir dire jury selection. Then it's determined of this group of people, this body of people, who is legally disqualified from serving. So you go through jury qualifications, you strike the people who are disqualified, you entertain excuses, disability and so on and so forth. And then you're left with the remaining group. And then the first 12 are selected, and then a group of alternates. So that's how grand jurors are selected. So, I mean, it's been my experience as I've been here. We've had, because of that process, we've had some very diverse grand juries because, this is an improvement because we used to have a pick a pal system and the judge picked their friends and benefactors to serve on a grand jury. But we no longer have that.
Right.
I don't know what it is in Kentucky, but that's the process.
So once the grand jury is selected, that's basically the grand jury for all indictments that come down. Is that correct?
For a term, and the terms vary. Yeah, but just say it's a 9-12 month term, and they make the decision on criminal cases during their term.
Right. Okay.
So and to be clear, the decision is true bill, no bill, or no action. And so they make a determination whether or not the case should proceed into court and through the criminal justice system. So if they say no, which is a no bill, then the case stops in its tracks. So in this case, it's a difficult job because, they're duty bound to make a decision based upon the facts.
Evidence that's presented by the prosecutor, but in Breonna Taylor's case, by the attorney general, correct? Because he was the one that was in charge of this case. Do you know why it got transferred to the district attorney? I'm sorry, the attorney general.
I'm not sure.
I still am trying to understand that. I don't know why it went to Daniel Cameron, who is the attorney general of Kentucky, instead of being handled by the district attorney in the Louisville, Kentucky area.
Yeah, there's a process here in Texas where I can request the attorney general's assistance and pass off a prosecution to the attorney general. And that's usually done where myself and my office has a conflict of interest. And so then we'll pass it off to the attorney general for prosecution. But, we were elected by people in our jurisdiction to make those decisions. And so I believe that, the local district attorney should make those decisions for the community and not pass it off to the attorney general. That's inconsistent with our Constitution.
I agree. And again, I'm an attorney. I don't practice criminal law, but I understand the basics of it. And I just could not understand why the attorney general was put in charge of handling this case anyway. So as a district attorney, and so what evidence would have been presented? Should all of the evidence have been presented to the grand jury? Because I'm hearing reports about there was different information that was, possibly presented to the grand jury, or not all of the evidence was presented to the grand jury in Breonna Taylor's case. I think the reports that said that initially the death certificate said that there were 5 gunshot wounds, and the attorney general stated, in a press conference, that there were actually 6 gunshot wounds that were, discovered on Breonna Taylor.
Yeah. Typically what you'll have in a grand jury presentation is there'll be a recitation of what occurred, and the grand jury then makes the decision, whether that's, by proffer or through witness testimony. But then the grand jury has the option of requesting additional testimony, requesting additional documentation. And so they control, the breadth of it. As initial presentation, and then they determine whether or not they want more information. So they have the power and authority to dig deeper. But typically what we try to do is we try to present evidence to support all the different elements of the offense. And oftentimes the defendant is allowed an opportunity to come and testify if they choose. They have the right not to incriminate themselves. But in certain instances, it may be beneficial, especially when you have a self-defense argument. So the grand jury can make that pass on that early on.
Right.
And sometimes people can avoid a prosecution by coming in and just simply, presenting the other side of the story. So it varies, but typically, when you have a gun, deadly force used, you're going to want ballistics reports. You're going to have an autopsy. You're going to have experts testify as to what all this information means. So it's kind of like a mini trial, but it's one-sided because the state is presenting it. And so it's not an adversarial process. It's an informational process. And the grand jurors are entrusted with making an impartial decision based upon the information that was presented.
So I know there have been calls, from the community, different, organizations for those, the information that was presented to the grand jury to be released to the public. Is that typically something that happens? Is that something that can happen? Yes or no?
No, under Texas law, grand jury proceedings are secret proceedings.
Right.
And so, there's some exceptions to it. Like when somebody purges themselves during a grand jury proceeding. But, you know, secrecy laws, I know to some, if, you know, in this situation, the public wants to know. But,
Right.
you know, if you have certain elements prying into grand jury proceedings, you know, it may endanger the lives of grand jurors, and it may compromise the whole criminal justice process if they're not kept secret. And so, you know, defense attorney may be allowed access to it. So, I mean, it's not like there are not exceptions to it, but just making it public information is going to be problematic. And if we start having a, you know, contested grand jury proceedings, then, you know, we're just duplicating the litigation, and we're going to have a bunch of mini trials before the actual trial. And so, I mean, it's imperfect process, probably could benefit from some improvement, but, you know, we're never going to have a perfect process.
Right.
You know, we're trusting human beings to make right decisions at different stages in the process. And so, you know what that entails. You know, we're not perfect people.
We're not. Right.
So, and, you know, this was painful for me because of, you know, the representations and everything that I've seen on you know, in the media, and just the mere fact that someone died, you know, that someone's child, you know, a life that's lost, and having to deal with that pain. And just like many African Americans looking at someone who has your same image, who yet again lost their life, is, you know, is troublesome. You know, it leads to hopelessness, and, you know, it reminds me of our need to go vote. You know, just like Reverend Al Sharpton says, take that pain and change it into power by going to vote. And so I'm just like, you know, if people still stay at home on election day, I'm just done. I mean,
I am too. I mean, I've been talking to people and just overhearing people that are saying, you know, why should I go vote? My vote is not going to count. I'm so sick and tired of hearing that.
right.
If what has happened over the past 5 or 6 months is not evidence enough about why you should go vote, then I don't know what else to say. You know,
Right.
I mean, like I said, there has been death after death after death. It seems like every single month since this pandemic started. And I guess with Ahmaud Arbery, I guess his death came right on the heels of the pandemic. So it seems like every month since then, there has been some African American that has been senselessly gunned down, or, you know, had a knee put on their neck or whatever. And it didn't have to happen. And the fact of the matter is that there is still no accountability. You know, I think you and I discussed this before. Yeah, there can be charges that are brought against these officers or individuals, but it's no guarantee that they're going to be convicted.
Right.
You know, and until that starts happening, especially in as far as law enforcement is concerned, I don't see that there's going to be any deterrence at all, because you know, civil lawsuit settlements are not going to cut going to cut it, right? Because they're not coming out of the officers' pockets. The city pays those.
Right.
So, I mean, where do we go from here? I mean, you and I have been out there protesting, marching, participating in community, you know, events. And, you know, we think that by doing that, we can try to affect change. I think in some instances we have, but where do we go from here?
Yeah, you know, it's, you know,
I know that's an open-ended question, and I don't think that there is an answer, but I'm just saying, like, you know, it's like we have had these conversations at least 3 times now. Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and now Breonna Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we hit rock bottom, so we have nowhere to go but up. But you know, we have to keep our eyes on the prize, so to speak, and keep moving. And if we ever want improvement, we have to keep requesting and demanding change until we get to the point to where we have hope. So hopelessness and the despair that we're feeling right now needs to be the motivating factor to seek justice. And so we just need to take this pain and turn it into power. using what Al Sharpton said, and advocate for change. You know, it's time's out for being complacent and apathetic.
Yep.
It's time to speak up. It's time to move.
Right.
Einstein said nothing gets done until something moves. So we got to get moving.
Absolutely. And, I know that, I guess for the most part, protests, well, except the ones that have kind of come together since Wednesday, have kind of calmed down, and you see people's social media timelines, someone going back to normal, but it seems like this is a cycle. Something happens, we protest, and then it falls off until something else happens again. So, and I have been preaching to everybody has to get out and vote on November the 3rd. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, your local elections, of course, the presidential election, but the bottom line is that if you're going to do a mail-in ballot, if you're going to go stand in line, whatever the case may be, if you're going to go out there, put your mask on and go vote. I mean, that's the only way that we're going to get any type of meaningful change in this country. And that's just the bottom line.
Totally agree. Wholeheartedly.
Well, again, I so appreciate you, again, taking the time to come on with me today and talk about yet another outcome that, again, that you said that we were hoping possibly would be different, but it wasn't. And, we just have to keep pushing and demanding change in this country. And that's the bottom line. Any last thoughts on Breonna Taylor that you want to leave us with that hasn't already been said?
I would just say this, when I was reading through the articles, this is a complicated set of facts. It's different than many of the other incidents, but it's still consistent with a pattern in practice in our country. And so right. I encourage people not just to be angry, take some action. And I don't mean violence. I mean,
we don't advocate that. I know I don't, and I know you don't.
Yeah. And, and this is what I would ask your viewers to do, is to call everybody and urge them to vote. I always tell people, call Tyrone, call everybody and tell them to go vote, because you have to push out the people in your community. And we need to, like they say, each one teach one, being your brother's keeper. We have to reach out to people we know and make sure that they're aware and that they take action, because that's the only way we're going to get this done. Everybody's not watching the news. Everybody's not on social media. And we can't take it for granted that everyone is aware of the circumstances and the urgency there is right now. There are people coming into our communities telling us to vote against people because they look like us, right. and it's this counter movement trying to tell us, to vote against our own interests. And so this is what I tell people, is that before you decide to vote for someone, ask them what they have done to end racism in your community. And then another thing, if you want to know if someone has your best interest at heart, evaluate and try to figure out what you have in common with that person. These are indicators of whether and what this person will do once they're elected to office. And then when they're elected to office, you need to show up and make sure that they held accountable. So that's just my little soapbox. We got a lot to do. So
yes, we do.
Get on the phones, get on the email, blast everybody, tell them go vote. It's time. Like that Spike Lee movie, School Days at the End, yep. Wake up,
wake up.
The alarm clock was going off. The alarm clock sounded. Get up, go vote. It's time for all the, the kids, childish games and everything. It's time to get busy, get serious about your social and civic responsibility and helping to improve our communities and to support each other and to end this thing in America called injustice. So, I mean, it's on each of us, and we got to do our parts.
I agree. And I know you certainly have been doing yours. And I just want to commend you again and thank you for all that you're doing for, you know, our community out here in Fort Bend County. But I know that you're active in Houston as well. So I commend you and just want to thank you for all, you know, that you do. And thank you for coming on here with me sometimes at the last minute, you know, but like I said, it's just taken me a couple of days just to try to process, you know, what went on Wednesday. And, you know, it always helps to talk about it, and just, it kind of clarifies for other people, you know, who just watch the news and they hear what the media has to say. But I feel like it always, you know, adds an additional layer of understanding if you hear this from actual attorneys who are doing this on the front lines on a daily basis. So that's the purpose of my platform. So I appreciate your support, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I know I'll be seeing you soon.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, take care and stay safe.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.